One night I found myself in the midst of a beautiful lucid dream. I was in an idyllic city. It seemed to be a valley along cobblestone streets, and there was a beautiful circular crater lake with a huge marble fountain in the center of it, ringed by green verdant hills. Everywhere was done up in classical architecture, and as I explored this city with complete lucidity, I'd felt that I had entered into some level of heaven. Right now, I don't remember a whole lot of the dream besides one part that has stood out as one of the most extraordinary things I've ever seen or experienced in a dream. Inside a room in a house I was wandering around in, I noticed a tanka. That's a tantric Buddhist style representation of a Buddha or some lesser form of divinity used to help the tantric practitioner meditate on the aspects of the absolute reality, and in practices where one manifests one's mind as the deity. The strange thing about this tanka was that the face was Pepe. Yes, I actually had a lucid dream where a version of a divinity which appeared on a tanka, which are usually reserved for Buddhas or aspects of the deities or Bodhisattvas and stuff like that, as the great and powerful Lord Kek. I remember it clear as day. He was yellow and sitting in the lotus position in the same manner as Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom, except instead of the face of Manjushri, it was the face of a smug Pepe. And instead of the traditional icon of Manjushri holding a flaming sword in his right hand, he was holding a Chinese-style dragon. To me, there's a great deal of symbolism encoded in this astral waking vision, and I'd like to try to explain the significance of what I think that it means. I think you guys will find it interesting. First, for those who might not be aware of what Pepe is or the significance around him and how he's become a kind of almost religious type figure, I'm sure everyone has seen a Pepe meme before. He represents projections of our unconscious mind, archetypes. He's like the fool in the tarot deck. He can represent positive or negative quality. He's the tapestry upon which we project our ideas onto, and we unite them into a funny meme which is transmitted virally through symbolism. Pepe took an almost occult level of power among the collective unconscious of the internet, and it eventually came out that there existed an Egyptian god of chaos and light called Kek, which was depicted as a frog. Kek is the substitute word for lol that 4chan uses because in the world of Warcraft, when outcast repulsive orcs would come crashing down upon the high and mighty SJW elves, they would hear LOL, 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 and it would come off as Kek, 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 Kek. It's hard to put into words symbolism in general and what I want to talk about here, but I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm going to try my best to interpret this in terms of ancient symbolism and my passion, which is like Jungian psychoanalysis. Kek has two aspects of Kek and Keketu, which represent chaos and light. But in a psychological sense, I believe that this has to do with the way in which our unconscious and conscious minds are integrated together. When we repress things that we're afraid of or don't understand or don't want to deal with, situations, people, pain, desire, belief, disbelief, any kind of thought or emotion really, they end up stewing in our unconscious mind and coming up in nasty ways. This muck of unconsciousness ends up controlling us without us ever even knowing it. The light of the conscious mind being able to access these suppressed, I don't know, let's call them memes for lack of a better word, allows them to be dealt with and integrated into the mind as they appear, forming a more whole psyche, allowing us to be conscious of what had been hidden inside of us, hitherto only appearing in full forms as dreams. The one who can do this can take control of their mind and not be a victim to their own selves or others. Strangely enough, Dr. Jung would have his patients draw mandalas, which means literally circle and represents the totality of our psyche. His patients seem to always mirror the ancient Eastern mandalas, showing 4 different aspects going on inside of us. Perhaps you could label these superego, ego, unconscious, and id. Coincidentally, these 4 channels, 4 chans, work together to form the fullness of a human psyche, or they are disharmonious and cause a person neuroses and mental disorder. I had an epiphany once after seeing the language of memes and the ideas which were encoded in them spread and take off. from their origination on a small little corner of the internet to them becoming a cultural phenomenon which is changing the way a whole new generation of people think. I made this graphic in order to visualize my ideas. Bear in mind that Manjushri is also known as Vakishvara, or Lord of Speech. The way that memes spread reminds me of a section from the text, The Kybalion, from the chapter of the principle of mental gender, which we've just discussed briefly. Quote unquote, in the phenomena of telepathy, it is seen how the vibratory energy of the masculine principle is projected towards the feminine principle of another person, and the latter takes the seed thought and allows it to develop into maturity. In the same way, suggestion and hypnotism operates. The masculine principle of the person giving the suggestion directs a stream of vibratory energy or willpower towards the feminine principle of another person, and the latter accepts it and takes it and makes its own and thinks and acts accordingly. An idea thus lodged in the mind of another person grows and develops, and in time is regarded as a rightful mental offspring of the individual, whereas in reality it is like the cuckoo egg placed in a sparrow's nest, where it destroys the rightful offspring and makes itself its home. The normal method is for the masculine and feminine principles in a person's mind to coordinate and act harmoniously in conjunction with each other. But unfortunately, the masculine principle in the average person is too lazy to act, the display of willpower too slight, and the consequence is that such persons are ruled almost entirely by the minds and wills of other persons, whom they allow to do their thinking and willing for them. How few original thoughts or original actions are performed by the average person. Are not the majority of persons mere shadows and echoes of others having stronger wills and minds than themselves? The trouble is that the average person dwells almost altogether in his me consciousness, and he does not realize that he has such a thing as an I. He is polarized in his feminine principle of mind, and the masculine principle, in which is lodged the will, is allowed to remain inactive and not employed. Remember this feminine and masculine principle, because it's going to come in to play later when I explain the symbolism of the Chinese dragon. The strong men and women of the world invariably manifest the masculine principle of will, and their strength depends materially upon this fact. Instead of living upon the impressions made upon their minds by others, they dominate their own minds by their will, obtaining the kind of mental images desired, and moreover dominate the minds of others likewise in the same manner. Look at the strong people, how they manage to implant their seed thoughts in the minds of the masses of people, thus causing the latter to think thoughts in accordance with the desires and wills of the strong individuals. This is why the masses of people are such sheep-like creatures, never originating an idea of their own, nor using their own powers of mental activity. Now, getting to the specific symbolism of Pepe appearing as Manjushri in this way with the Chinese dragon. From redzombala.com. Manjushri can be translated as beautiful radiance or gentle prince. In Sanskrit, Manju means beautiful, lovely, charming, pleasant, sweet, while Shri has a range of meanings taking in light, luster, radiance, prosperity, welfare, good fortune, success, auspiciousness, high rank, royalty. Shri is also a common address to realized teachers or saints in Hinduism. He is also known by the name Manju Ghosh. Ghosh means voice, so it's usually translated as beautiful voice. Another name of Manjushri is Vakishvara, or Lord of Speech. Here are some choice verses about the nature of Manjushri from the Manjushri Namasamgiti that I think deserve contemplation as regards to what I've just laid down previously and what we're going to talk about. He is the Buddha Vairochan, the great illuminator, the great able sage, having the great sagely stillness. He is the one produced through great mantra's mode of travel, and by identity nature he himself is great mantra's mode of travel. He is the Lord of Speech, the Master of Speech, eloquent in speech, the one with mastery over speech, the one with limitless words, having true speech, the speaker of truth, the one that indicates the four truths. He's the one that's standing on the far shore beyond recurring samsara, with what needs to be done having been done, settled on dry land. His cleaving sword of discriminating awareness having drawn out the deep awareness of what's unique. He's the one possessing positive force, a network of positive force, and deep awareness, the great source of deep awareness, possessing deep awareness, having deep awareness of what exists and what doesn't exist, the one with the built-up pair of networks networked together. He's the learned one, the bearer of great illusion, the fulfiller of aims with great illusion, the delighter with the delight through great illusion, the conjurer of Indra's net of great illusion. In his great offering festival, great longing desires, the provider of joy to all living beings. In his great offering festival, great anger is the great foe of all disturbing emotion. In his great offering festival, great naivete is the dispeller of the naivete of the naive mind. In his great offering festival, great fury is the great foe of great fury. In his great offering festival, great greed's the dispeller of all greed. He's the one with the great desire, great happiness, great joy, great delight. Great horrific one shouting, ha ha! Creator of terror shouting, hee hee, with enormous laughter, booming long laughter, Vajra laughter, great roar. He's the Vajra-minded, the great-minded, Vajra king, great bliss, Vajra fierce, great delight, Vajra Humkara, the one shouting Hum. He's the holder of the Vajra arrow as his weapon, the slasher of everything with his Vajra sword. He's the holder of the crossed Vajra, possessor of a Vajra, possessor of a unique Vajra, the terminator of battles. He's the formless one with an excellent form, the foremost one, having varied forms, made from the mind. He's a glory of appearances in every form, the bearer of reflections, leaving out none. He's the teacher of knowledge and good qualities to the world, the teacher of the world without any fears, the guardian, the rescuer, trusted throughout the world's three planes, the refuge, the protector, unsurpassed. He's the powerful lord of speech, the magnificent speaker, the supreme among speakers, the ruler of speakers, the best of those speaking, the very best one, the lion of speakers, unconquerable by others. He's the perfected state of every far-reaching attitude, the wearer of all Bhumi's levels of mind as adornment. He's the lack of a true identity nature of totally pure existing things. He's correct deep awareness, the core light of the moon. Great discriminating awareness in a single moment. He's the bearer of comprehension of all excellent things, the clear realization of all existent things. He's the able sage with foremost intelligent, the end point of that which is perfectly so. He's the hero in the battle with the disturbing emotions, the unique one, the slayer of the insolent arrogance of the enemy, unawareness. He's intelligence, bearer of an enamored tone, the one with glory, bearer of forms with heroic and disdainful tones. He's the one pounding with 100 clubs in his hands. He's the dancer with the pounding down of his feet. He's the one with glory, the user of 100 hands. The dancer across the sectors used in the expanse of the sky. He's the one having great adherence to all limited beings, but without having adherence like the sky. He's the one entering the minds of all limited beings, having speed in accordance with the mind of all limited beings. He's the identity nature totally pure of the spheres of disturbing emotions. He's the depleter of the spheres of karma. He's the one who has fully crossed over the ocean of currents, the one who's emerged from the wilderness by means of the yogas. He's the one with objects of all conceptual discernment gotten rid of, the one with objects of partitioning consciousness brought to a halt. He's the cognitive object in reference to the minds of all limited beings, the one that abides in the minds of all limited beings. He's the culminating point of actualized, the one with confusion departed. He's the one with every mistake dispelled. He's intelligence, not indecisively wavering, the one that is threefold, the one fulfilling everyone's aims, with an identity nature of three constituents. That was from the Manjushri Nama Samgiti Tantra, which I have on my channel if you'd like to take a listen to it. In Tibetan Buddhism, our consciousness and speech on its various levels, transcendental, subtle, or verbal, is all tied into the structure of our mind and even to reality itself. In a way, the whole process that I've described is showing what's going on in our mind when we're mired in ignorance or brought to enlightenment. By being able to connect the 4 channels of our psyche, we can realize a wholeness and cut to the absolute truth of any given idea, a quote-unquote meme, and make a stronger idea which can overtake weaker ones and challenge and change cultures and peoples. Instead of holding a flaming sword of discriminating wisdom, Manjushri, manifesting as a smug Pepe, is holding a Chinese dragon. This is incredibly relevant and profound. In Buddhist symbolism, holding the Naga serpent would represent either perhaps conquering or holding aloft the unconscious mind. I have a sadhana text where we're generating as a deity, and he's wearing a naga around his waist, and it says in parentheses the naga means the unconscious mind. So holding aloft in his right hand the unconscious mind, raising the muck from out of its foggy darkness and smugly putting it on display, not caring what others with weaker minds are thinking while we're doing it. This Naga king guards the treasures which lurk at the bottom of the ocean. A dragon is a terrifying monster, and just as so, looking into our own unconscious, animalistic minds, the past, the primitive from which we've come from, and shadows of ourselves can be terrifying, but it also reveals the gems of truth which can be gleaned by confronting what we're afraid of and overcoming it. This is a similar theme in Western mythology, with the dragon guarding a hoard of treasure. In my dream, I particularly saw a Chinese-style dragon as depicted in the image shown. In China, the dragon is probably the most immensely important symbol and most auspicious symbol in their history. According to Wikipedia, the ancient Chinese self-identified as the descendants of the dragon because the Chinese dragon is an imagined reptile that represents evolution from the ancestors and the Qi energy. So here is another meaning where we have the Bodhisattva of wisdom discerning the ultimate reality from the primordial past, a representation of evolution and wisdom, and the Qi energy, which is the psychic vitalizing force of the mind and body which propels life forward. Another quote from Wiki says, Chinese dragons traditionally symbolize potent and auspicious powers, particularly control over water, rainfall, typhoons, and floods. The dragon is also a symbol of power, strength, and good luck for people who are worthy of it. With this, the Emperor of China usually used the dragon as a symbol of his imperial power and strength, representing that yang power, that masculine mind, which we talked about earlier, and its ability to overcome lesser thought forms and seed weaker minds with ideas, representing the authority of the rulers of the natural and cultural world, their excellence, heroism, perseverance, nobility, and divinity. The dragon symbolizes all 12 houses and 4 elements of the zodiac converged, all the qualities of the psyche brought together as a whole. Dragons are considered wise royal advisors. Their breath, which is heavily associated in the East with speech and consciousness, again, brings life and bestows power to the world, especially in the form of the 4 seasons, again tying in our analogy of the driving force behind the 4 sections of the psyche. This depiction of a temple in Thailand of a Naga dragon emerging from the mouth of a Makara is especially relevant. In Buddhism, usually each of the 4 sides of a temple are guarded by Makaras. According to Wiki, these mythological half-fish, half-crocodile creatures are made up of 1 or 2 animals, often representing the union of opposites, parentheses, or a harmonization of qualities that transcends our usual experience. The Makara also represents Capricorn, the sea goat, quote-unquote. The goat part of the symbol depicts ambition, resolute, intelligence, curiosity, but also steadiness and ability to thrive in inhospitable environments, while the fish represents passion, spirituality, intuition, and connection with the soul. Certainly, this carries a lot of resonance to us who generally consider ourselves to have taken some form of red pill or another, and especially to us Pepes in the alt-right. Actually, as in the sign of Capricorn, which is ruled by the toughest, most unyielding planet Saturn, which forces us through struggle, as in the struggle of postmodernism, to beget something new, which pushes us to be curious, intelligent, resolute, and also to balance the forces in our minds and find the connection of our animal unconscious with our soul. It's a very apt metaphor for us in the alt-right in these times indeed. Another correlation can be the syllable Pe, which, according to visiblemantra.com, means something like crack, as in like a loud noise, like of something being smacked together, like someone being smacked in the face. It's imported from the Vedic tradition. In the Bodhisattva mantra, it is added when the mantra is used to subdue demons. In general, it's a sound used in sadhanas when you want to subdue lower forces with the power of a violent and wrathful Buddha mind. Pe, pe. It's actually a very common syllable that's used in all of the wrathful mantras. Hung, as in the syllable that was associated with Manjushri, is usually followed by Pe. Hung, pe. It's the noise you make when you want to subdue demons or, like I said, lower psychic forces. In conclusion, I think this form of what I might call the smug Manjushri or Naga King Manjushri, or maybe just the Pe Manjushri, Pepe Manjushri, represents the currents and waves of wisdom which churn in the ocean of ideas and crack against one another, forming new channels of viewing oneself and the world around us, especially in the context of Pepe, the symbol of meme magic, the alt-right, and all that I've been describing is that is entailing in the present year. It's a manifestation of the meditational deity which the alt-right have summoned as their collective memes and fields of ideas, and the forces which work within to bring forth from the bottom of the ocean of the repressed collective unconscious the jewels of the Naga King, to look back at our animal history and bring forth the jewels from them without being afraid of the dragon which guards them. The dragon shows the potential of the authority, auspiciousness, wisdom, and creative force which is being played at by people participating in the alt-right. I could analyze on and on, but I'll leave that to future videos. If you look around at what memes have done in the last few years, there definitely seems to be a powerful virile force behind it in some strange way, goading it on as it slowly reaches out its claws and summons forth its dragon's breath upon people's minds. This has been a Shakti production. If you like my videos and would like to see more content, please support me by just sharing and liking, making sure that we get a lot of reach, and I'll be glad to keep pumping out content for you guys. Peace.